The nuclear meltdown at Chernobyl in Ukraine was 30 years ago, but the crisis is still with us today.
Somewhere in the most radioactive forest on Earth, a hidden camera was left running in the dark. When scientists pulled the footage, they went silent, because what the lens caught moving through that dead zone should not exist. Not there. Not after everything that soil has absorbed.
You need it to remove all the livestock and much of the wildlife as well, because it was radioactive.
They went into towns, villages, found animals, pet dogs, cats, and shot them.
The instruments say nothing that alive can survive in that ground. Yet, frame after frame, it keeps appearing, calm, healthy, completely at home. Researchers have studied it, tested it, and still cannot explain what the cameras in Chernobyl recorded. What you are about to see rewrites what radiation is supposed to do to life. The night everything stopped. To understand what the cameras found, you have to go back to the night it all stopped. April 26th, 1986. Inside Reactor 4 of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, a routine test went wrong, and in seconds a blast tore the top off the building and threw heat and radiation straight into the night sky. An invisible cloud drifted over the nearby town of Pripyat while people slept, and the few who woke saw only a strange glow on the horizon and told themselves it was a fire somewhere far away. By morning, the order came. Leave now, bring almost nothing. You will be back in a few days. Thousands believed that, and most never set foot inside again. Beds with toys still on them, tables with the plates still set, school books left open to the last lesson anyone would ever teach in that room, cups of tea that were never finished. Today the wind moves through the broken windows and carries back nothing but silence. Close to the reactor, the pine forests changed color overnight. The needles turned rust red, dropped, and the birds vanished. People called it the Red Forest, and it became one of the most contaminated patches of ground on Earth. It did not burn, it faded, quietly, like something switched off. That was the moment Chernobyl stopped being an accident and became a place where life was supposed to have ended for good. If you had lived in Pripyat that night, and someone told you to leave everything behind, what is the one thing you would have grabbed on the way out? Tell me in the comments, because I read them. But the explosion was only the first threat. The far greater disaster had not even started yet. The men who went into the dark. Here is what almost no one outside the plant understood at the time. Everyone was watching the fire and the smoke above ground. The real danger was underneath. Beneath the shattered reactor sat a pool of water, part of the plant's own safety system. Above it, the molten remains of the core were burning down through the concrete floor. If that superheated material reached the water, it could flash into a steam explosion, powerful enough to level what was left of the complex and fling radiation across a huge stretch of Europe. Somebody had to drain that pool by hand. 3 men volunteered: Alexei Ananenko, Valery Bespalov, and Boris Baranov pulled on their suits, took their flashlights, and waded into chest-high radioactive water in near total darkness to find the valves. They found them. They opened them. The water drained away, and the second catastrophe never came. For years, the story went around that all 3 died within weeks. It became one of the great legends of the disaster. It is not true. Ananenko and Bespalov lived on for decades. Baranov passed away in 2005, and by most accounts, not from radiation at all. What those 3 did in that flooded basement may have quietly saved more of Europe than anyone will ever measure. They were only the first. In the months that followed, more than 600,000 people were sent in, the ones history now calls the liquidators. Firefighters, soldiers, miners, medics, engineers, ordinary civilians. Think about that number for a second. An entire small city of people cycled through the most dangerous place on the planet a few minutes at a time. Their job was to stabilize the site, clear the most dangerous debris, and raise a shield over the wounded reactor. Many worked with little more than shovels, some with their bare hands, and many paid for it with their health. According to the United Nations Scientific Committee, their work sharply reduced the long-term radiation that would otherwise have spread across the continent. And then the last crews packed up, the fences went up for good, and every human being walked away. The noise stopped, the lights went out. And in that silence, something no one had planned for began to move. Before we go further, I need 10 seconds from you. If this is pulling you in, tap subscribe and turn on the notification bell. It genuinely keeps this channel alive, and if you do it, I promise to keep hunting down the stories nobody else will touch and bringing them straight to you. That is the deal. Now, back into the zone, because this is where it stops making sense. The cameras nobody expected. Long after the world had forgotten these forests, the scientists had not. Recently, a research team went back into the most restricted part of the exclusion zone, the part almost no human ever enters. And this time, they were not there to fix anything. They were there to watch. They bolted dozens of motion-activated cameras to trees and posts across areas with wildly different radiation levels, wanting to know one thing. Could anything survive in a place left almost completely alone for close to 40 years? And if so, how? Picture the moment the first cards come back. One of the researchers sits alone in a cramped field station, the only light coming off a laptop screen, feeding in footage from a camera planted in the hottest ground the team dared to enter. Frame after frame is empty, wind in the grass, shadows sliding over snow. Then the screen fills with a shape that makes them lean in close. A deer standing calmly in fresh snow, exactly where the instruments say nothing should be able to live. Then a fox slipping past a crumbling building. Then a wild boar shoving its nose through dead leaves. Not sick, not dying, doing well. Every week the memory cards came back heavier. Predators, rare birds. A few species not documented here in something like 100 years. Reporting from National Geographic and the British Ecological Society lines up with what the team was seeing, and the footage has become some of the most valuable evidence we have for what happens when people simply vanish from a place. At first, it was only shadows on the screens. Then something crept into frame that the reading said should not exist. What came out of the shadows? It started with a shape, then a snout pushing through the leaves. A wild boar rooting near a broken fence like it owned the place. After that, the cameras could not stop finding things. Foxes threading between abandoned buildings. Deer under dead street lamps. Wolves moving in the open, unhurried, completely at home. Then came paw prints in the mud, large ones and tiny ones beside them. Cubs, born and raised inside the ruins of the worst nuclear disaster in history. According to data tied to the Chernobyl Biosphere Reserve, the cameras logged more than 10 mammal species and at least 5 kinds of birds, including some not seen around here in decades. The gray wolf population was not just holding steady, it was booming, not scraping by in the cleaner edges of the zone, but flourishing right in the heart of it. Researchers connected to the University of Georgia had gone in expecting sickness and decline, weak animals, empty forests. What they found instead was a landscape crowded with life, thriving even in zones where the radiation readings should have made that impossible. That word kept coming up, impossible. The scientists now describe Chernobyl less as a wasteland and more as an accidental refuge, a place wildlife came flooding back into the moment the humans left. But the most surprising visitors had not shown up yet. What walked in next were creatures this region had given up for lost. The ones that came back. Under a moonlit stretch of forest, one camera caught something the researchers almost could not believe. A European lynx, a cat long thought gone from this region entirely, padding through the Chernobyl woods, ears up, completely at ease. A predator taking back ground that was once its own. It moved like it had never left. Like the disaster had been an invitation rather than an ending. A few weeks later, another camera picked up something bigger. A brown bear, heavy and slow, moving through the abandoned trees. The first confirmed sighting of a bear in this area in over a century. Out in the wetlands, black storks, birds so wary of people they usually vanish the moment humans move in, were nesting in the open and raising their young in all that stillness. Nature was not asking permission anymore. The event that poisoned the land and drove every last person out is the same event that turned it into one of the safest places on the continent to be a wild animal. These creatures did not just survive Chernobyl, they came back to it. Seeing them return was strange enough. But then the researchers looked closer at the animals themselves and found something that should not be happening this fast. Evolution in fast forward. This is the part nobody can fully explain. The wolves of Chernobyl are not like other wolves. They travel through some of the most contaminated ground on the planet, sleep beside collapsing buildings, and hunt right past the yellow signs warning everyone else away. Since around 2014, researchers from Princeton have been studying them. and the first shock was simply how many there are, a population far denser than in the clean territory nearby. Then the blood work came back, and this is where it gets hard to explain away. The tests turned up genetic changes linked to stronger immune systems and what may be a built-in resistance to certain diseases, including some cancers. Scientists have described what is happening in these animals as evolution running in fast forward, pressure so intense that changes you would normally measure across many generations seem to be showing up right now. The wolves are not merely tolerating the radiation. Something in them appears to be answering it, and no one can say exactly how. And it is not only the wolves. Birds, rodents, and insects across the zone show genetic shifts of their own. Some look neutral, some may actually be helping. Radiation is still doing real harm here. Plenty of species suffer, and parts of the zone remain genuinely dangerous. But in ways nobody predicted, life is not just enduring this place. It appears to be rewriting itself to fit it. The animals were changing. But what about the ground they were standing on? The forest that rebuilt itself. In the Soviet years, the pines around Chernobyl were planted in tidy rows, grown for timber and easy to manage. When the reactor blew in 1986, radiation hit the closest trees hardest, turning them that infamous rust orange and giving the red forest its name. But the wider forest beyond it was mostly left alone. No loggers, no plans, no people. And nature took the invitation. Birch, oak, aspen, and maple pushed up between the old pines. Ferns, moss, and fungi spread across the floor. With no one to cut it back, the land reshaped itself into something wild and tangled and alive. A 2021 study found the area is actually more biodiverse now than before the disaster, supporting a wider range of animals and even pulling carbon out of the air as it grows. Read that again. More alive now, after the worst nuclear accident in history, than it was before. 30 years of satellite imagery show the forest steadily expanding, even into places where the radiation still runs high. That is the contradiction the scientists keep circling. In some places, the more contaminated the ground, the stronger the growth. As the trees came back, so did the rivers. And under their calm surface, something invisible was tying the whole system together. The hidden web beneath the water. The rivers of Chernobyl were once feared, and for good reason, because moving water carries contamination. But those same rivers quietly became one of the engines driving the recovery. When fish reach the end of their lives, they do not just disappear, they become food. A 2020 study connected to the Royal Society of Biology found that otters, American mink, and foxes regularly feed on these fish. As those animals move, hunt, and den across the landscape, they carry nutrients from the water out into the soil, stitching rivers and forests into a single living network. Scientists call it aquatic to terrestrial nutrient transfer, and it happens here with no human hand involved at all. Researchers from the University of South Carolina and the Ukrainian Institute of Hydrobiology have confirmed this steady flow of nutrients is feeding the growing plant and animal populations across the zone. A single fish can end up nourishing dozens of other organisms. First in the water, then out in the forest. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is separate. In a place the world remembers for its isolation, life now runs almost entirely on connection. But before you call this a happy ending, there is a silent force still sitting under all that green. What still lurks beneath? For all the life pouring back in, the radiation never left. It is still in the soil, the trees, the buildings. You just cannot see it. Scientists now map it with drones, LiDAR, and gamma spectrometers, and they can pinpoint it more precisely than ever. The danger is not spread evenly. There are hotspots, and the red forest holds some of the worst. In certain pockets, you can absorb close to a full year's normal radiation dose in a matter of hours. A 2021 study published in Nature Communications tied these concentrations to buried nuclear material, fuel fragments, and graphite thrown out during the reactor for disaster. Over the years, rain, wind, and decay have moved those particles around, opening new zones of concern where there were none before. The scientists tracking it describe the threat not as gone, but as something that has shifted and changed shape. And it is not leaving soon. Cesium-137 and strontium-90 have half-lives of roughly 30 years. Plutonium-239 can linger for up to 24,000. Parts of this zone will need watching for longer than any nation alive today has existed, longer than recorded history, which makes the thriving wildlife even harder to square. The ground is still deadly, the numbers still say danger, and the animals keep coming anyway. And yet, against all of that, the world suddenly could not stop staring at Chernobyl again. Why the world came back. For a long time, Chernobyl slipped out of public view, left to scientists and historians. Then, in 2019, HBO released its series Chernobyl, with Jared Harris as the scientist Valery Legazov, and the whole world turned back around. The show swept up 10 Emmy Awards and reignited a level of interest the site had not seen in decades. Tourism jumped by nearly 40% that year. People flew in from all over the planet to walk through Pripyat with their own eyes, to stand under the rusting Ferris wheel, to look up at the enormous steel arch now sealing Reactor 4. They came expecting ghosts. What caught them off guard was the life. Between the crumbling apartment blocks, the forest was green, the animals were out, and the quiet felt less like death and more like something waking up. And the more people looked, the more the same strange question kept surfacing. If this place is so poisoned, why is it so alive? Journalists and filmmakers followed and turned dry research into stories people actually wanted to hear. But underneath the headlines, a bigger question was taking shape. What is this place actually trying to teach us? What Chernobyl really shows us? The radiation did not disappear. It is still in the soil and the trees and the concrete, but the humans left almost overnight. The factories went dark, the cars stopped, and for the first time in generations, the land was simply left alone. At first, scientists were sure nothing could come back. The contamination looked far too severe, but with no roads, no hunting, no engines, no noise, life found its way back in anyway. Birds nested on the rooftops, wolves returned, plants forced up through cracked pavement, the rivers cleared, the forests thickened, and the food chain rebuilt itself piece by piece, without a single person lifting a finger to help. That has forced a lot of experts to rethink things they were once certain about. As outlets like Scientific American and the UN Environment Program have reported, Chernobyl has become a rare, real-world look at how nature responds the moment people step aside. The radiation still carries real risk. Some species suffer, and some may never return. But stripped of industry, traffic, and pollution, the land found the room to heal. And that is the piece that still does not add up. The wildlife is not just surviving in spite of the radiation. In places, it is thriving right on top of it. And in the middle of it all walk the wolves, carrying changes in their blood that science still cannot fully explain, in a forest that was never supposed to hold life again. So, here is my question, and I really want your answer. If you could put one hidden camera anywhere on Earth, exactly like the ones rolling in Chernobyl right now, where would you point it? And what are you secretly hoping it would catch? Drop it in the comments and tell me where you would look. If this one surprised you, hit that like button and subscribe so you do not miss the next story, and I will see you in the next one.